right, 8 minutes before 10 o'clock. We speak to authors every day. We have a great relationship with authors and with their publicists, and the books that come through this studio are, everything under the sun. And there are some books that I say to Robin, before we donate this to, because there's a church, by the way, that when we don't give away a book or whatever, we donate to a church, and then they sell it on eBay, and it goes to their fund for pregnant girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've got some kind of a thing they do. But every once in a while, I'll say, just don't give this one away yet. I want to read this one because I didn't finish it, which is not unusual considering how many books we have. But it's weird if you walk into a home that has lots of books, you know that sitting on that quiet shelf are all these things that just come alive when you open them up and you start reading them. I think that's my fascination with books in the first place. Pamela Paul probably agrees with that. It sounds like she reads a lot. She's got a book called My Life with Bob. Bob, as Robin pointed out, is an acronym for Book of Books, which is the book she carries with her everywhere. Mm-hmm. Pamela is the editor of the New York Times Book Review, which makes sense considering what we know about her just with that little bit. She oversees book coverage at the Times. She's a contributor to Time Magazine, The Economist, The Atlantic, The Washington Post, and if I go on and on, we won't have any time. So let's say good morning to Pamela Paul. Good morning, Pamela.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Sorry, such a long intro. Thank you for being on the air. How long have you had your book of books?
So, Bob, my book of books, is a journal that I've been keeping since I was 17.
Wow.
And it's not about the books. It's actually just a list of the books and the authors that I've read since then. And it's turned into a kind of diary of my life, because I can remember looking back on it, where I was when I read that book, what that book felt like, why I read it, what I thought of it, sort of the whole sense memory comes back to me. And in that way, it's become a much more kind of rich journal of my life than I think any real diary would have been.
Really? So when you look through the book of books, the titles, mm-hmm. Can you see the times you were daring? Because books for me are like a buffet. I'm very ordinary. like I'm not going to go to the food that looks weird. And the same thing with books. I'm not going to go to the book that seems like not my kind of book. But every once in a while, mm-hmm. you'll be bold and you'll do that. Do you do the same thing?
Yeah, I do. I think that all of us, we have different reasons for reading at any given time. Like sometimes you're looking for a book, you're actually looking for some kind of information. You're trying to answer a question. Other times you're looking for just something easy and fun, like a total escape read. Sometimes you're looking for solace. You're dealing with something difficult in your life, or, it's a hard time. After 9/11, a lot of people turn to certain kinds of stories for escape and comfort. And so this book, My Life with Bob, isn't so much about the specific books I read myself, because I think that would be very boring to read, someone else's list of their books.
Right, sure.
But it's about kind of why we turn to the books that we do and what we get out of them. It's about the role that storytelling plays in our life.
Do you ever let me ask you it this way. The one book I don't particularly like is the book that tries to persuade me to believe something. It doesn't have to mm-hmm. be. It could be politics. It could be religion. It could be anything. And I might even agree with the author, but I just don't like that. It turns me off for one reason or another. And do those books? Do you finish those books? Like when you start reading one, do you finish them? And do they get included in the book of books?
So those books are usually called argument books because they're trying. It's a persuasive writer. They're trying to marshal evidence to make a case. I do read them sometimes. Again, I think that a lot of us we read things for different reasons at different times, and sometimes I will read that kind of book. More often, I will read about that kind of book so that I don't have to read that kind of book. For me, often reading is about being transported. It's about living a life that I might not, or getting to experience something I might not otherwise get to experience. So right now, for example, I'm reading a novel that takes place in an Irish Catholic family in Ireland in the 1980s. Well, I didn't live in Ireland in the 1980s. In fact, I've never been to Ireland. I'm not Irish Catholic. So for me, reading that book, it's like you get to experience a story through another set of eyes. And that author's take and those characters' experience then become in part my own, because I'm thinking about them. You know, I might be driving to work, but at the same time, like, I'm thinking about those stories.
Well, that's what I mean. When you look at a bookshelf, it's all quiet until you open them up, and then this whole world opens up for you.
Yes. So it's like, what I tried to do with this book is to write about that connection between the book and the reader. You know, it's that whole space between. It's what it is that gets us to turn to books and why they affect us in the way that they do. It might be...
Go ahead.
No. So it might be, you know, for example, I have 3 children, so many of my reading experiences in recent years have been around my kids, and a lot of that has been about rereading books that I read as a child, and then seeing them through my own kids' eyes, and that is such a fascinating experience.
And when you read a book, do you, and you love the book, do you stay away from seeing the movie because the magic might go away?
Well, that's a really good question, and I think that that's one of the reasons why books are so powerful, because books force you to fill out those pictures yourself. So you're participating in it. It's truly interactive. Like, if it's a fantasy novel, you have to build in your own brain, like, what that world looks like, you know, some kind of other planet. Like, you're creating that. You're imagining what the character looks like, whereas the movie, it's delivering it to you. And one of the hard things about movies is that, you know, once you have those characters in your head, it's kind of hard to then go back to your own character. So with our kids, for example, going back to that experience, I wanted them to read all of the Harry Potter books before they saw the movie, so that they could create the world of Hogwarts in their own heads and have their own sort of, you know, involvement in that process, because it's really exciting for kids before they were delivered the movies.
The book is called My Life with Bob. Pamela Paul, thank you so much for being on the air. Do you have a website you can direct us to?
I do. It's PamelaPaul.com.
Okay.
And please feel free to email me.
Thank you, Pamela. I wish we had more time. We'll take a little break. Be right back.
Calling for a special prosecutor in the probe into Russian interference in our election.
They fired Sally Yates. They fired Preet Bharara. And now they fired Director Comey, the very man leading the investigation.
President Trump pushing back on Twitter.
The Democrats have said some of the worst things about James Comey, including the fact that he should be fired. But now they play so sad. He added James Comey will be replaced by someone who will do a far better job.
Fox's Kevin Corke. Russia's highest level meeting so far of this administration taking place this morning, a face-to-face between the Russian foreign minister and President